Recording and capturing great sound with your band is easier than you think. In this video we're going to show you how we mic the drums, hook the bass and guitar to our recording mixer. We've developed a very straightforward way to do this because we want to do this every band rehearsal and every gig. Our setup gives us a very nice in-ear monitor mix, but also we are able to capture multitrack audio that we can use in videos, in recordings, and also to kind of fine-tune our arrangements. We can listen back to our rehearsals during the week, and it's a great tool in every possible way. We begin with the most mysterious part, miking the drums. Recently we got a great level up with our drum sound as we received this bag from Lewitt. It's got everything that we need to get a great drum sound: kick, snare, 3 tom mics and a pair of overheads. The fact that all the mics are from the same kit makes our job even easier, as these mics were designed to work together. We use 6 microphones, couple of clips, 3 microphone stands, stereo bar and bunch of XLR cables that are not in the picture. We have a very short mic stand for the kick drum. We place the microphone slightly inside the hole and point it towards the beater.
Bassorumpu.
Bassorumpu.
Bassorumpu. Kick mic from Lewitt is kind of special. It has both dynamic and condenser capsules inside. You get a cable and a separate output for both of these capsules. For us, the condenser capsule gives a little bit more punchier sound, and we prefer to use that. This is our Zoom recorder. Let's give it some color. Here's the kick microphone. We just simply hook the microphone cable to our mixer, make sure the gain is right, it doesn't clip, and that's just about it. L12 has 8 mic pre's and 2 stereo inputs, and that's just about enough for a small band like ours.
Kuulokkeet.
What's really handy is you can create individual headphone mixes to each and every one. So Lasse can have more bass and I can have louder guitar, and Thomas wants a little bit more click when we play with backing tracks. We capture the snare with MTP 440, and that gives us that full punchy close-up sound. To be able to reach the snare, we use a short mic stand.
Virveli.
Virveli.
Virveli. The less microphone stands you need, the better. We use clips to mount the microphones for the toms.
Pikku Tomi.
Pikku
Pikku Tomi.
Iso Tomi!
Iso Tomi.
Iso Tomi. Overhead microphones are very important for the overall drum sound. You can mic the overheads in various ways. Many times you see one microphone on the right side and one on the hi-hat side of the drum kit. What we found out after some experimenting was that we could use a stereo bar and hook both microphones to that and place that over the snare drum. Then point the other microphone towards the right cymbal and the other one towards the hi-hat. What we get is a very good stereo image. It picks up the hi-hat very well and the snare just sits perfectly in the center of the stereo image.
Ovarit!
Ovarit.
Ovarit.
The center of my guitar rig is of course the Deluxe 40 from Hughes & Kettner. The amp is the main source for all the tone, but this pedal board gives me all the control and all the effects that I need to fill all the space. There's just one snake that carries all the cables back and forth and also MIDI and power, so it's a solid unit. Then of course I got the Ruokangas guitars, Cracking Frog and Frog Green guitar.
Kitara!
Kitara. Deluxe 40 has a red box direct out that I use to send the signal to 2 notes Torpedo Cab M, which is a virtual cabinet. It also does power amp simulation and EQ. It allows me to custom tailor my final tone. Here the signal runs straight to channel 1 of the mixer.
Efektilauta. Piuha.
Lasse's bass rig is very simple. He has a pedal board with tuner, octaver and a fuzz.
Basso.
Basso. When we play live, Lasse uses an amplifier, but here we don't need it. This pedal board goes to a D.I. and this D.I. then goes to the mixer. One thing that is surprisingly important when playing with in-ear monitoring is ambience. We have only close mics and bass and guitar direct. If you don't have any ambience there in the mix, it sounds very odd. So we have a separate lexicon rack here that gives us a little bit of room so we can have we kind of have our own venue in our ears when we play. So whenever during the rehearsals or when we're working on a song, when I feel like it, I can press the rec button, and this captures the audio on a SD card. And that is very easy for me to carry to my studio. After the rehearsals, I just take the SD card and I import the tracks to Cubase. Once you're done a mix for your band rehearsal recording, you can always use this same mix as a template or a starting point for the future recordings. Just make sure you drag and drop the right tracks to their right places, and you get more or less ready sounding mix already. And now starts the mixing part of this video. I encourage you to watch this if you are any interested in sound. It might give you some ideas even if you are not into mixing in general. Now, while I still remember this, remember to watch our 5-track recording in our band rehearsal place to hear all these sounds in real music. And now let's get deep with tweaking the sounds and mixing the audio. Here's how the kick drum track looks like on my Cubase. This is the signal with just a little bit of limiter to boost up the volume, dry as it was recorded. What I like to do is EQ some of the frequencies around 180. These sound like this. Cutting away those frequencies clears out the whole thing a little bit. Then another EQ that boosts high and low frequencies quite a bit. With this EQ, it sounds like so it becomes sounding quite modern already. That high and low frequency really helps the kick to really be heard in the final mix. Then I do something that is really handy with all the close miking of drums. This is expanding, not compressing, but expanding the signal. So when you have low volume stuff, it cuts that even lower. And when you have high attack, then you hear it as it was originally. So without the expander, this is with the expander. It can also clear some of the boom if you have some long sustaining frequencies with the kick drum. Here's snare drum as dry as it was originally recorded. With the EQ it sounds like this. I don't do much anything except I cut away some frequencies around 250. But the original sound is so great already, it doesn't really need much anything. Then also, like with the kick drum, I have expander. So this will especially be very useful again when other drums are starting to play together. Let's listen how the kick and snare work together. One thing we forgot, the snare needs some reverb and gate hall. Right now it might sound little weird, but after we add the overhead microphones, it'll sound way much more natural. You'll see. Here's rack tom and floor tom. You might be wondering why I have them on one stereo track. It's a long story. Our mixer has limited amount of inputs. Blah blah. You should record them separately. And well, anyways, here's the dry sound of the original toms. I just have a little bit of limiter to make it sound loud again. And the only little things that I like to do with these is I add again some expander on both of these and focus more on the attack of the sound, and then I EQ these a little bit. This is the rack tom without the EQ, and with the EQ there's seems to be some frequencies here that sound a little nasty. Yeah, it kind of creates strange. This is frequency that kind of adds dissonance to the sound of this tom. But that's it. I don't do anything else for that tom, and same thing for the floor tom. Well, here's a little bit more complex EQ. I guess there's some frequencies, yeah, that I'd rather cut out a little. And then for the getting a little bit more powerful sound, I have some low end and high end boost. And then once we add some gate reverb and room to these, oh sorry, they may sound again a little wet, but these once we get the overheads and whole set together, these reverbs help all these fills with toms kind of stand out a little bit more, and it sounds kind of nice. That's it. For the overall drum sound, the overheads have a huge impact, and this is where the main sound tends to come from. This is where the microphones sound without any treatment. What I like to do is, this is very subtle EQing, around 2.6 kilohertz. I like to cut those a little bit so it sounds a little smoother. I also have here my favorite plugin, Sooth, which searches for any resonating frequencies and tames those down. If you use this too much or aggressively, so you have to be a little careful with it. And yeah, that's it for the overheads. Finally, let's hear it all together. Let's start with a kick, snare, and this together with the overheads. couple of things I like to have with the whole drum kit is some master compressor for the whole thing. Nothing heavy. Just add a little bit of punch with a not too fast attack, and then some room. That's it with the drums. Let's take a look at the guitar track. This is the actual track. Hidden here we have some automation, minor tweaks mostly, and well, Palma Driver is an example where I faded the guitar lower, and I wanted to give Lasse's slap solo more space. So this is basically a live recording kind of thing. So I'm doing the kind of things that a front of house mixer would do in live situation. My guitar signal is sent to a group where the actual effects are done, and there's a little bit of EQ around 2.5 and 5 kilohertz. There are some little dips, and without the EQ it sounds like these things are matter to your taste. I prefer to cut a little bit of those high mid frequencies out. Then some parallel compression, which I also use to pump up the volume of the guitar a little bit. This is mainly to make sure that if there's some dynamic things, the guitar will sit better in the mix, and it doesn't disappear so easily. So that's the point of the compression. Then there's, well, the guitar is a mono recording, so I have some, in places I have some cathedral kind of reverb. I guess here but most of these tracks just have a little bit of delay. Well, it's quite loud, but it's automated, so at times it's mixed lower and sometimes louder. Then we have some room. Without it, it sounds like delay is kind of is disappeared in the overall mix, and it kind of creates more dimensional sound. And so does the doubler. This kind of creates a doubling kind of sound. Kind of adds a little bit of detune kind of thing. So if I'm a little bit out of tune, the pitch isn't so critical. It works really well for other live recordings because yeah, it's a little bit of mess. And another thing to create some dimension to the guitar sound, and also a little bit to the bass as well, is a secret thing that I use. I just realized how incredible this is. It's called Symphonic. It's a classic Yamaha effect from SVX series of rack effects, and I actually have it. I found it on my mixer. I recorded that effect here a little bit. Sounds like this. In the mix, it kind of sounds to me like the band is really playing in the room. It creates this kind of a more natural kind of environment sound. And I think it's very nice, especially for a live in a room kind of recording. Lasse is kind of a wild man, so sometimes I need to tame his signal just a little bit. Here's how the bass sound. One of the very first things that I do to this signal is I have a plugin called Spiff, and this is for the transients, the very beginning of the attack. There's some clips, and this is a plugin that can control those. So basically, without it, this sounds like you hear those clicks, and with the Spiff, I get to control those. So this is the part that we are actually touching. Just need to be a little careful not to take all of that out. You want to control it, not cut it out completely. Sooth I have here for one reason, and that's for Lasse's fuzz sound, which is kind of steals a little bit too much attention in especially Ginger Fox. With the Sooth it sounds like you could do the similar kind of thing with an EQ as well, but I guess I just like the Sooth so much. The idea is that the bass doesn't steal the whole song in that spot. Leave some room for the guitar and drums as well. Then the actual processing is done here in the bass group, where I have Ampex plugin from IK Multimedia. I've been using this for 15 years in all my recordings. When there's bass, there's always this, and I have a collection of presets that I've done for all the recordings. Great Blue Waves, effortless, mystery. You can see so many songs there, and I tweak and I might save the preset if it sounds good, and sometimes I take these old presets as a starting point, and here I use the Cinnamon Valley song bass preset for the starters, and without Ampex this bass sounds like it gives volume, but it does a whole lot more as well. And then there is a little bit of compression, some EQ. It looks like there's some lower around 90 hertz. There's some boost. Then there is some cut. And some of the very high frequencies are cut away as well. And then there's finally a limiter that might tame some of the highest peaks if there's some left after these plugins. And I feed and I add some room reverb. And also, like I explained in the guitar segment, bass has also this symphonic effect. It kind of spreads the sound a little bit, like it's reverbing in the room, and yeah. And that's the bass. One element in all these songs here is also our backing track. We use an iPad to play back our backing track videos, and it comes with a stereo output, so the left side of the signal is actually click. Especially Thomas likes to hear the click, so we all stay in sync with the backing track songs. And the right side of the cable comes with a mono backing track mix. And it depends on the song. Sometimes there's very little elements, sometimes there are more, but this is how the backing tracks sound when we play with them. For this video mix, I actually replaced those mono mixes with original stereo mixes of the backing tracks, so it sounds a little wider. It's also, well, thanks to that, our playing sounds a little bit bigger. Without the backing track, this part sounds like... In this session you can see that I have the effects here. Cathedral, one 8-note dotted delay, which I didn't use for the whole project, I think. One quarter note delay, plate reverb, room reverb, and a doubler. So these are here always available. And these are classic IK Multimedia plugins, and they just sound great to my ear. And in mastering, I have C4 to a multi-band kind of limiting thing that kind of keeps the frequencies a little bit together, and then just a limiter there, a brickwall thing, so the signal doesn't get too hot or distorted. And that's it. It's a very simple mix in the end. If you're new to mixing, it's a lot of information, but step by step exploring and studying, I suggest that you start searching YouTube for all sort of tutorials on mixing if you're interested, and just start by doing and studying and exploring. And I'm very impressed you got this far. Thank you for watching. I hope you got some inspiration and ideas to your working and work with your band, recording, mixing. I would love to hear your thoughts about this. Hope this was at least entertaining. Hope I didn't confuse your head too much. Remember, don't take my work too seriously, and don't take your work too seriously. Explore, try out, have fun, and yeah, make great music. I'd like to thank Lewitt for the great microphone update, and 2 notes for the C.A.B M. Always using Kettner. subscribe. Let me hear what kind of videos you'd like to see in the future and also your thoughts. So see you soon.